The Trumpet of Swans. Sam Beaver, an 11-year-old boy, was walking through a forest when he heard a loud trumpet. Startled, he searched the woods and swamps till he found a big nest of two enormous trumpeter swans by a lonely pond in the middle of the forest. They were laying eggs. Sam was filled with wonder because he knew that trumpeter swans were very rare. He returned to the same spot a week later to watch the birds again, but the swan could only sense that an outsider was nearby. The swan had a strange feeling of being watched. She twisted and peered uneasily and gazed intently at the point of land that jutted out into the pond near the nest, searching for an intruder. What she finally saw surprised her. There was a small boy sitting on a log. He was very quiet, and he had no gun. "There is a boy on that log," the swan whispered to the cob. The cob was furious. "How did he get here in the heart of the forest? Boys can't fly, and there are no roads in the jungle," he shouted. "Maybe he's lost," said the swan quietly. "Anyway, he's just observing us." "But what if he throws stones at us?" said the cob. "Just wait, I'll go and knock him cold with my wing." "Now, just wait, don't start a fight," said the swan. "He's not bothering us at all. Anyway, I've started this nest and I'll go and lay a fourth egg now," said the swan. For the next hour, the cob paddled slowly around the tiny island keeping watch. Sam sat on the log spellbound at the sight of these large water birds. After he had watched them for an hour, Sam got up and quietly left. The birds watched him go. Sighing with relief, the swan left the nest and turned to look back. There, lying safely on the soft feathers at the bottom of the nest, were 4 eggs. She gazed at them proudly. The swan settled herself in the nest to keep her eggs warm. Carefully, she reached down with her bill and poked each egg until it was in just the right spot to receive warmth from her body. The cob sailed around close by to keep her company and protect her from enemies. He knew that a fox prowled somewhere in the woods, and he had heard him barking on some nights. Days passed, and the swan sat in the nest, warming the eggs through the sun and rain. The weeks went by. No one disturbed her. Finally, one warm afternoon, tired of swimming around, the cob asked the swan, "Do you never get tired of sitting in one place?" "No," replied the swan, "not really." "Isn't it uncomfortable to sit on eggs?" "Yes, it is," replied the swan, "but I won't have to sit for long. Our cygnets will be born soon." "Don't you ever feel hungry or thirsty?" asked the cob. "Yes, I do. I'm actually very thirsty right now." The swan decided she could safely leave the eggs for a few minutes. She pushed some loose feathers around the eggs to hide them and keep them warm. Then she stepped off the nest and entered the water to take several quick sips. She glided over to a shallow place, thrust her head underwater, and pulled up tender greens from the bottom. Finally, she waddled out onto a grassy bank and stood there, preening her feathers. She felt good, but she had no idea that at that moment the enemy, the red fox, stood waiting behind a clump of bushes. The cob spied the fox first. "Look out," he trumpeted. "I can see the fox creeping toward you. You're in grave danger." But just as the fox was about to spring on the swan, a stick came hurtling through the air, surprising everybody. It struck the fox on the nose as he yelped in pain while turning around to run away. The 2 birds could not imagine what had happened. Then they noticed a movement in the bushes. Out stepped Sam Beaver, the boy who had visited them a month ago. Seeing him, the swans knew that he had saved them from the fox. They realized that their boy was their friend after all. Go ho," said the cob. "Go ho," replied the swan. The pond rang with the sounds of victory and gladness. Sam was thrilled. He walked slowly around the shore and sat down on a log. The cob swam over towards Sam. climbed out of the pond and stood close to the boy, looking at him in a friendly way and arching his neck gracefully. Once he ran his neck far out cautiously and almost touched the boy. Sam never moved a muscle. His heart thumped with excitement and joy. The swan paddled back to her nest and returned to her eggs. She felt lucky to be alive. An extract from The Trumpet of the Swan by E.B. White.